Hey guys, we're going to get started here in just a second if you want to take a seat. So welcome to this session. It's all about removing the roadblocks to growth and hiring a virtual assistant. So I would bet if you are here today, there's some part of you that is frustrated, needs help in your business, wants to grow your business, is ready to scale, and through way of a virtual assistant that can be done. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to go through why you need a virtual assistant, or why you should outsource. We're going to identify what are the things that you should outsource and can outsource, where to find a virtual assistant, how to let go when it's time to get a virtual assistant, and then the systems that you can use to communicate together to really streamline and make this an easy transition for you. So I'll share a little bit about myself. My name is Molly Rose Speed. I'm a military spouse from Destin, Florida, who 5 years ago today was sitting in a corporate office with a soul-sucking job, and I called myself a cubicle dweller, and I knew something needed to change. And I discovered this career of supporting people like you, entrepreneurs, small business owners, creators, and serving them as a virtual assistant. So fast forward 5 years today, and I now teach other people how to start these businesses through my business, the Academy for Virtual Assistants, and I help entrepreneurs transition to outsourcing and building a team and really scaling their businesses. So I want you to think about this for a second. There are creators and visionaries, and then there are integrators and implementers. So I would bet that 90+% of you sitting in front of me are in this visionary role, or you should be in this visionary role, but you're operating in the implementer role, and there's a big difference. So in order for you to stay in your zone of genius, you really need to be a creator. You need to be a visionary, and these are the things that you need to do. And then you need people like virtual assistants, people like me, who are really good at implementing what you have for big ideas to keep you in your zone of genius. So I met a gentleman last year. We were in Barcelona doing some work together, and he broke down in front of me because he had this dream of becoming a public speaker, but he had no idea how to do it. He was crippled by the systems and the processes and everything that he needed to put into place in order to fulfill his dream of being a public speaker. And I sat in front of him and I said, you can do this. Like, you're a visionary, you can do this. And there's just simple processes and steps that we can put in place for you, and I can help you with that. So fast forward again to today in his life. A year later, he has over $200,000 in public speaking revenue. He has a book coming out. He has a t-shirt coming out with his face on it. He has a very successful podcast, and he's affecting people's lives in the role that he's really, really good at, all because he trusted someone to help him and help him scale at something that he wasn't very good at. So, what is your value? What are all the things that you're doing in your life that you want to be doing that add value to your bottom line? So take, for example, $100 an hour is roughly $200,000 a year. It's a really, really good living. So what are all the things that you're doing in your business that are actually only making you $20 an hour? If you continue to keep doing these things, you're never going to make the $100 an hour. You're never going to make the living that you dream of and you envision for your life. So what are some of those things? What are some of the tasks that you're doing that are probably $20 tasks that you could be outsourcing? Posting blogs. Scheduling. Social media. Bookkeeping. Uploading a podcast. Uploading your YouTube videos. Booking travel. Sending invoices. Checking email. Responding to email. Managing your calendar. So these are all things that you are probably doing in your business that you don't need to be doing, plus a little bit more. So there's an exercise I like to walk entrepreneurs and business owners through. For the next week or 2 weeks, depending upon the volume of business that you do every day, I want you to keep a notebook next to your computer, and I want you to write down all the things that you do. Big or small. You uploaded the blog, you wrote the blog, you made the graphic, you did your SEO, you recorded that podcast, you booked that speaking engagement, you sent that invoice, you called your mom, you booked that travel, whatever it is. And then I want you to walk away and come back to the document with a fresh mind and circle all the things that you physically had to do. So you had to coach the client, that's your business. Or you had to show up and be a speaker. You had to call your mom. Those are things that you cannot necessarily outsource. But what's left is a really strong list of things that you're doing in your business that you can outsource. And this starts to write your job description. So we're going to identify what those things are through an exercise like that, and then that's what you can go and hire someone to do for you. The second part of this would be identifying what you can pay them. So there's a huge range for what you pay virtual assistants, and you have to understand that what you're asking them to do has to match kind of what you're paying. So if you're outsourcing something like research for your blog, that might be a low-level, easy thing. You just need some bullets and some links to add to your blog. That might be a $5 an hour gig that you can find somewhere, versus doing some website work or really thinking through a social media strategy or really having a brain in your business. Those are higher dollar tasks. So you kind of have to understand what you're asking for. And if there's a mesh of everything, then you can kind of come to a common ground on budget. So I kind of say that you're going to expect between, from a real virtual assistant that's going to come onto your team, $10 to $40 an hour is kind of the range for a virtual assistant. But then there's also this thing called an operations business manager, and you might have heard this. It's kind of a big buzzword that's happening in our industry called an OBM. And there's a big difference between a virtual assistant and an OBM. So a virtual assistant is a tasker. There's someone that you give them a list on Monday, and by Friday it's all completed, and you don't really have to worry about it. They don't have to ask a lot of questions. An operations business manager is there to systematize, optimize, and automate your business. These people charge a lot more because they're really helping you advance your business as opposed to just integrating what you already are telling them to do. So you'll run into these people a lot, so just knowing that there's a difference. So where do we find virtual assistants? This is a big question I think I get a lot because people are paralyzed. Well, where do I find a good person? And there's a lot of places to look. And what's really great is you have that solid job description of all the things that you're looking for someone. You have a budget in your mind of what you want to pay, and you marry those things together and you go to places like Facebook. There are a ton of virtual assistant Facebook groups out there that you can go in and post your job and just say, hey, I'm looking for a VA, and within minutes you will have applicants. And you can ask them certain questions, you can vet them through an interview process, whatever you choose to do that works for you. But I've found several virtual assistants through Facebook that I've had to bring on to my team because I'm over capacity, and I've had amazing success with some of these people. The second place I recommend is a place called Upwork, which some of you might have heard of that before. It's a marketplace where the virtual assistants would hang out, but you can also find researchers, web designers, coders, developers, freelance writers. Some of you might have profiles on there. And then you, as the business owner, can go in and post your job and ask for the job description that you're posting, post your rate, and you'll have applications right away, and that's that same process. For Upwork, I really use that for one-and-done tasks personally. I found really great success. So I have a graphic designer that I found on there that is wonderful, and I pay her per project, and I can always rely on her design. Or researchers, I go there a lot, and I say, I need a list of 100 schools in this state, this position, and they'll bring it back to me for $40, and I have contacts in that industry of what I'm looking to do. So you kind of just have to make it very specific, and then they're really great at what they're doing at a very low cost because a lot of it's outsourced to other countries, so our dollar goes a lot longer for them. The other place to look is VA websites. So there are a lot of companies popping up right now where you can buy a bulk set of hours, and then they source the virtual assistant for you. So it's a little less personal, but if what you're asking for is very like the same thing all the time, it's a great place to go, and you know what you're paying up front, and a lot of people have good success with this. Lastly, I'd say your internal networks. This is the most valuable place to find virtual assistants because someone has used them or knows them and trusts them. So think of where we are right now. We're at FinCon. There's thousands of people here, and I guarantee there's several people walking around that have virtual assistants, know virtual assistants, that are looking for work, and it's just kind of getting to know and putting that question out there in our social groups or in your conversations today. I love this quote by Gary Vee. I've been listening to a lot of Gary Vee lately. He says, if you're not running a business, you don't have a team helping you grow. So this brings me to our very own Jocelyn Pearson, who's sitting in the audience today, and she is the founder of the scholarship system. She's been running this business for a little over 2 years, and it's a very successful course program, and she built it from the ground up all by herself. And a little over a year ago, she hired her first virtual assistant, and they started small. She trained her herself. There were a lot of growing pains and a lot of things that they had to work through. But fast forward to today, and we're rooming together, and I said, Jocelyn, you haven't been on your computer. Like, what's going on? And she said, my virtual assistant's literally running my business. And she's here enjoying herself and immersing herself in everything that she needs to learn. She said, in fact, Molly Rose, my virtual assistant just hired a VA for herself because she's growing a little bit. So that was really cool to hear that she could take something that she needed to get off her plate because she literally didn't stop working for over a year straight, and now she's experiencing life and running a really fantastic business. So just to see where it could go by opening up this opportunity. So the last thing would be to let go. So once you do find a virtual assistant, you have all been running your businesses for a year, 5 years, 10 years, who knows? And I would bet to believe that you have been implementing everything yourself. So you have a lot of passion for the way things are done. You want things to be a specific way, and that's all stuff you can standardize. But you also have to understand that someone's going to come and add value to your team, and they're going to want to make it better, or they might do it their way, but that you get the same outcome, and that's something you have to be okay with. And you also have to be okay with trusting someone to do this work for you. So there will be growing pains, just like what Jocelyn went through, but on the other side, it builds capacity, it helps you scale, and you have to remember to let go once you get to this position to really take the leap and outsource. It's a little scary, but it's so worth it. Get a few months under your belt, and I promise you will love the whole process. So I always say this to business owners. I say, trust you're working with professionals until proven otherwise. So let people make mistakes on your team. Again, you're going to start with small tasks that it's not going to be a huge fire in your business. You're going to test them with uploading a blog, might be something that they do for a week or so, and make a graphic for you. Those are small things that are easily changeable, and then they can grow into the more in-depth tasks that you trust, and they can ask questions, and you have a really good relationship. So how do we work together once you have a virtual assistant? This is very important. I think email is our worst enemy these days, and so when you bring someone onto your team, that's the #1 place people go to start communicating with one another, and it just bogs things down, and it's very frustrating. So I use a system called Asana for all of our communications and project management. I have a rule that if it's not in Asana, it doesn't get done. So that's how we work together, and it works really great. So from both sides, it lets you be really transparent. The way we communicate is through Voxer, which is a walkie-talkie app. I just adapted this over the past year or so because I was realizing that I was messaging my clients with email, text messaging. I was calling them. It was way too many channels, whereas a quick question in Voxer was a lot easier, and they respected my time by sending me a Vox. When I was on the clock, I could listen to it, and then I could take action as opposed to getting a text message stopping what I'm doing. I'm not on the clock. It got really frustrating. So I like to, whatever system you choose for communicating and talking with one another, kind of stick to one thing. Google Suite is awesome. We all know how that works, but keeping things on a cloud really is good for your virtual assistant. They will be way less frustrated. And Evernote is another great place for cloud work. We kind of separate our strategy and talking over there, whereas our physical documents like blogs and podcast information is in a Google Drive would be an example. And LastPass, I added this last night because I was asking a lot of people what their fear was in hiring a virtual assistant, and a lot of it is around trust and passwords. Like, what do you do with all your passwords? And LastPass is something that you can give them one password, and it's unique to them, and then it unlocks all of their other passwords. So if you're on a a banking site and you go to it and LastPass, I don't know your banking information, but I know the LastPass password. So it just keeps things a little bit more secure. Toggle is a time tracking app. You can ask for your virtual assistant's reports out of this, and they can learn how to break it out into what tasks they're working on if you're having a concern with the type of where they're spending their time, and that's something you want to manage. And last, 17 hats. This is something if your virtual assistant's new or they just need a little bit more streamlining in their business. It's a great place for sending contracts and invoicing. It allows you to pay as the business owner via credit card, and everything's just very streamlined and nice. So it just eliminates a lot of back and forth. So I recommend that for both business owners and for virtual assistants. So I'll leave you with this. You alone have 40 hours a week. The average American, we might all work a little bit more than that. But if you hire someone, you now have 80 hours a week, and imagine what that could do for your business and the scale that you want to take it to. So at outsourceresource.co, I have a template for you to walk through that exercise where you can identify all the skill sets that you need to outsource to someone, and it will help you write your job description to then put out on social media and within your network and get started that way. So any questions from you? So she's asking, what do you look for in an applicant? So what makes them stand apart? So I tell the students that go through my program that they need to also run their own business. So they need to have a website, and if they don't have a website, even a Facebook business page or somewhere where a LinkedIn page where you could go and understand that they're a legitimate business and they're prepared to take on this kind of work, and they're a professional virtual assistant. So that's kind of what I look for. Part of the way that I market my program to students is that by investing in something like this, you're showing all of these business owners that you're taking this seriously and you're getting the adequate training to serve others. So that's kind of been a really good thing. Yeah, totally. So it depends on what avenue you go. So he's asking, how do you pay your virtual assistant? If they're a professional virtual assistant and they're running their own business, they're going to give you some options. I take payment from Venmo. I have 17 hats, which you can pay directly through a credit card system. PayPal is really great. And then for my main clients, I have direct deposit set up through their businesses, and that works really, really great if you're at that scale because you don't have to worry about it and your 1099s are done. So that's important too. Yeah, sure. So she's asking if I have a directory of virtual assistants that have done my program. I do, and it's growing. So that's a great place. Happy to reach out to me and send me your job description, and then I can place you. That's the first thing I'll ask you. So yes, I do. And then the second question was operations business manager. Elaborate a little bit more on that. So this is the role that I've probably come into over my 5 years because I'm just getting more involved in a lot higher level. So they might strategize with the business owner and they'll really figure out, okay, what's your vision? And then how am I going to do it? And they'll run with it. So the entrepreneur or business owner doesn't have to worry about the systems and the automation and the processes. I might just say, okay, you need this podcast with this opt-in that needs to have this funnel behind it. I would set all that up. So it's less upload the blog or make the graphic and more systems and automation and optimizing. So she's asking if I suggest working with a virtual assistant that's within your niche, because they, yes and no. I think it depends, again, what you're asking. So I predominantly support public speakers, and that's my zone of genius. So it really benefits a public speaker to work with a virtual assistant that's in that space. Like that would be a really great example. There are a lot of virtual assistants that just support podcasters. So if that's what you're asking them to do, if you're asking them to do something a lot more general and a little bit of all the media that you're involved in, you'd kind of want a general virtual assistant as opposed to someone that's very specific. Yeah. Sure. So she asked about outsourcing to other countries and paying a lot less. This is a Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week model. Again, what you're asking those people to do is not what you're necessarily doing in your business. So it has to be very systematic and streamlined and very simple. So they're getting a task on Monday, they finish it on Friday, and there's not a lot of thought that goes into it from my experience. You might get really lucky and find someone in another country that has the skill set and the communication and diversity to do all these things for you. But I really promote the American kind of stay-at-home mom that has a college degree that is learning all of this stuff and can really integrate into your business and be a personal virtual assistant as opposed to someone that you don't know that you're just outsourcing to. So yes, it can be done. Yeah, very just same thing every time. Yeah. When things aren't going well and you have to communicate that, how would you handle that? Yeah, and is there a performance review or something like that? And yeah. So I recommend a 60 or 90 day, just kind of like the corporate world would, review, or it's an open conversation. Let's try this out together, because they want to really support you and help you, and you want them to, or you want to support them. Like, it's a two-way street. And I really encourage you to not just hire someone as a tasker, to hire a virtual assistant that's going to integrate and care about your business, because they're going to be with you a really long time. So I think you know off the bat if they're not what you're looking for. So some of the things to think about in your job description is the type of person, not just what they can do, because anyone can learn the things that we're doing. You all learned it probably. So do you want an extrovert? Do you want an introvert? Do you want someone that's autonomous and can do things on their own, or do you want someone that wants to be told what to do and they're very systematized? There's benefits to both of those. So having those conversations from the beginning and saying, okay, it's 60 days, you know, if this isn't working out, no sweat, you tell me, I tell you, and then that way it makes it a two-way street, because you're both running businesses. That's a great question. She asked pay scales. So if they're doing well and they're with you for a long time, is there a standard of giving them a raise or something like that? So I'm really happy you asked that, because it means you care, and if someone's working with your team and you want to reward them for their great work, there's two ways to do that. You can give them a raise, and I recommend 10 to 20% as you see fit. And really, as you're asking them to do more work for you, understand what you're asking them to do and the value that they're bringing to your business, and share that with them. Give them a raise. Also, quarterly and annual bonuses. Even a gift card. Like, don't forget your virtual assistant at Christmas. It means so much. There's been clients that I've been working with, and I'm like, oh, you know, I'm not serving them anymore. Very like high potential. I should get this to someone else, a new virtual assistant that could take this on. And then Christmas rolls around, and they give me this awesome gift, and I just love them, and I want to work for them. Like, that makes me as a virtual assistant want to do really good work for them. So imagine getting a 10% raise or 20% raise here and there, and just feeling the value. They're going to work so much harder for your business and care about what they're doing. He's asking about timeline for virtual assistants. So do you get someone for a 6-month contract, a year contract? What is it? And look at their contract if they have one. If not, create your own. So again, I would not sign anything more than 60 days at first. So give yourself an out if you need to. And then I think you would know, let's try 6 months, and then they might just start integrating into your annual contract. But I also have clauses in my contracts that either of us can walk away with 30 days notice. Because things change, your business changes. You're not signing a contract for this commitment. It'd be different for probably an operations business manager or like a project manager, because they're running a different type of business. I do, but they're not legally binding. So I'm happy to share those with you, but just understand that, yeah, shoot me an email. I can, outside of a website, what are you looking for in a virtual assistant? So what are the things to look for? For me personally, I want someone that's going to figure it out. So I give them a simple task and they don't know how to do it, and it's something that you can Google it. Like, that means so much. And then if you still don't know, then ask me the question. Someone that can work independently and not ask a bunch of questions. Of course, in the first 60 days, they probably are, because they're getting to know your business and they want to know it really, really well. And then for me, it's also personality. So do we mesh well together? Do they take feedback? Do they give me feedback? Like, this isn't working for me. This form of communication isn't working. So kind of an open dialogue. And that's really what those 60 days are all about. Yeah, so are there questions you can ask before hiring them, essentially, for the 60-day period, so you can eliminate some of that? Yeah, I've been asked what my Myers-Briggs reading is. You can ask them simple questions like, if I were to task you with X project and you didn't know what to do, what would you do? And just see what they say. They're like, well, I'd go to YouTube and learn it. Or if they say, well, I'd ask you, that might be a signal for me, because I want someone that can kind of work on their own before coming to me. I'd probably ask them what they're really interested in. It doesn't mean that they're not going to do other things, but you're going to notice, like, if they love doing social media, they're going to focus on that part of your business and then do the other stuff because they're really passionate about it. So that might, you're like, well, that's what I need the most. That may be a great virtual assistant. She asked about doing a task as part of the application. On Upwork, for example, I always do this. So I might give them a very simple, like $10 task, and I pay them for their time if they finish it correctly. And it's very systematized and standardized. I would highly recommend that. And you have done it. It's something you did and you timed yourself. I've heard of some people that do this and they say, okay, you have 30 minutes to go do this now and then email me or get on Skype with me and let's talk about it. So you know that they're physically doing it in 30 minutes and you can talk through the details. Well, thank you, guys.